on baseball. And Florida had a bad softball game. They just didn't hit the ball. Lost 2-1, which they usually don't lose when they only give up 2 runs. Baseball, you go on the road, you're going to lose games. And we talked about it, about how good, actually Auburn was not a bad team. They just had a bad record. And there's a big difference between being a bad team and having a bad record. Sometimes they can be together. But in this case, I think it was definitely that this was not a bad team. And they came back and tied that game, and big hit for Florida to end up winning that game in the top of the ninth, and then got the close as well. So anyway, I'm kind of rambling here, but my point is, because that's what happens when you try to talk about 2 sports at the same time. All right, baseball is now number 14. They actually went up in the D1 poll. Next up, of course, is number 2 Vanderbilt. The good thing is Florida doesn't have to play a midweek game this week. I think it's because of graduation, maybe. But anyway, Vanderbilt's number 2 in the country, and they're coming in here with those 2 pitchers. That's going to be really fascinating to watch how that goes. And the good news for softball, even though they lost that first game to a South Carolina team that obviously had only 2 wins coming in, they came back and won the next 2. And at the same time, Arkansas lost 2 games over the weekend. They actually have another game tonight. They're playing that Monday game. And so we look forward to seeing how that turns out, because now all of a sudden it's on. And with only a couple of weeks left, Florida has 2. I talked about this last week, I think. Florida has 2 series left, and Arkansas only has 1. But they've got the game tonight, and then they have 1 series. And then they have the last week. I think they're just completely off. I don't even know. That's pretty good deal when you can take the last weekend of the year off and see if you win the SEC. But the point is, Florida's kind of back in the race in the SEC East. I mean, there are teams ahead of them. Obviously, Vanderbilt's leading that, and back in the race in softball mostly because of those Arkansas losses. They needed Arkansas to lose a couple of games. So that is going to be really interesting to see how they do going forward. Of course, we're almost golf still going on, tennis still going on. It's going to be an interesting late spring. Do you call this, I guess, is this late spring or early summer? Whatever it is, it's certainly a busy time, and there's a lot going on. And it's busy because dealing with this golf tournament, man, and people have been unbelievable. We're less than 3 weeks away, so I'm getting a little bit, where my stomach's a little bit upset. I lay there in bed sometimes at night and go, oh, you know what you got to do? You got to do this. You got to do this. You got to do this. By the way, this is our 38th show. That seems stunning to me that we've been doing this show for 38 times. And hopefully people have enjoyed it. I hope so far. We are going to talk a little bit about the NFL draft and coming up because, I think you guys understand. I just about had it with all these things people are saying. The draft chatter is driving me nuts. Nuts. It's crazy. I just, by the way, just got back. I went to St. Augustine, saw my sister, and took my oldest daughter over there. We had a blast over there, went on a little boat ride. Pretty cool. I had a good time. All right, so we are going to be joined right now by one of the greatest to ever play the game in both college and pros. The great Neal Anderson joins us. Neal, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Pat. How are you?
I'm good. How's your family with those incredible daughters of yours?
And they're doing great. Both are at home. One is getting ready to go to volleyball practice. She plays in Orlando. Our club team is there, so she's got a 5:30 practice tonight. And the older one is at UNC Greensboro, and I went there a couple of days ago and rode back with her. She's going to be home for the summer because her classes are online. The one she has now, and volleyball season just ended, so she gets to come home and hang out with the family.
Yeah, I think that's where Jenna Wiggs is playing too, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Jenna's there playing libero, so we got a chance to see her for a while. So yeah, she's there now.
Boy, I don't know. I know that the genes were passed along. I'm wondering how good an athlete were your parents, because you were obviously a great player. So do you think it was a gene thing with them?
I think it is a little bit of a gene thing. My mom was the biggest cheerleader in the world. I mean, she, no matter what you did, as long as you were trying, she was cheering for you. No matter what the score. My dad was a really good athlete, and all his friends when I was growing up, they would never let me forget it. No matter what I did, it wasn't quite like your dad. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, they said he ran so fast, it was unbelievable. So so I guess I got it honestly.
Yeah. By the way, I wanted to ask you about your draft day, what that was like, because obviously the draft coming up Thursday. Thank goodness it is coming. I want to get it over with. I just want to see who gets drafted where.
Exactly. Yeah, it was a fun time, for myself and my family. I was at home, and I only allowed one person to be in the room with me. I think my nephew, he's now an attorney, he's the lead counsel for Universal Studios and the Golf Channel,
Wow.
and he was 1 year old at the time, and he was the only person I allowed in the room with me because he didn't know what was going on, and so we were just, until I got the call, and but it was a great time. And then all my family came in once the call came in from Mike Ditka, and I want to know what I think about being a Chicago Bear, and that was great. Being a first round pick and having Mike Ditka call when the team just finished doing the Super Bowl shuffle and just winning the Super Bowl. So that was it was a great day that I'll never forget.
Yeah. Was there any, you know, feelings of, oh, you mean where Walter Payton is? I mean, come on. That's going to be tough to
Well,
unseat him.
not really. I mean, I knew, all about Walter being, at that time, probably the greatest running back in the history of the game, or at least one of them, along with Jim Brown. But I knew that I could play. When you draft a guy in the first round, you feel like that he can play also. So I just wanted to get there and compete, and may the best man win.
Well, it was amazing that, because I think I'm right on this. That first round, you had three running backs taken from Florida, right?
That year was two of us, myself and John L. Williams. But during
Oh,
the '84 season, we had four of
because
us at
Low
one
Hampton went in the
time.
first round too, right?
Yeah, well, Lorenzo Hampton was a first round pick, and James Jones was a first round pick. So during my freshman year, we were all four there at the same time, and all happened to go in the first round, and that was pretty unusual.
Yeah, absolutely. And all really had great NFL careers too.
Yep,
I mean,
it
we
worked
were
out.
talking about who's the greatest Gators of all time, and I brought your name up on the radio the other day, and we talked about some of the others that just ridiculous how good the running back class was. Was that an issue for you coming to Florida, and that there were so many good players here, running backs?
No, it wasn't at all. I think most people that I knew thought I was crazy because, coming from a small 2A high school high school class of 64 students, and I don't even know if we had 22 players on the high school team. And they thought, Lorenzo Hampton is already there, and he's a starter, and he's going to be there a few more years. And then John L. Williams at the time was one of the top recruits, if not the top recruit in the country. And, people were like, why are you going there? You're not going to play. But I didn't think that would be the case. I believed in what I could do, and that I had some potential. And again, it was the same thing as going to Chicago. I just thought they would give me a chance, and we'll see what happens. And
Well,
it worked out.
yeah, but I mean, you had to kind of go and put your foot down to get on the field, didn't you, at Florida?
Well, it kind of worked out where, there was a game coming up, and I was like fifth string running back, and through just a whole lot of coincidences happening, I was the only one left. I think one of the running backs got in some type of suspension, and and I think Johnny Williams, he pulled his hamstring, and another one decided that they moved him to defense, and next thing you know, I go from fifth string to first string, and the coaches decide that they were not gonna start me. They were gonna run a one-back set with James Jones. We wouldn't use the normal two-back set with the fullback and the halfback. They just keep the fullback in, and and I kind of understood it, but also felt like if I go from fifth to first and I still can't play, you don't believe him, and I called Coach Mickey Andrews and told him that I appreciated everything he had done recruiting me, he and his wife, but this would be it for me at the University of Florida. And he told me, he said, well, if you come to the defensive side of the ball, you got to earn it, but I think you'll be fine. You'll play, you'll start. And I said, no, I want to give running back a chance. And I think, to make a long story short, he ended up talking to Coach Pell, and I'll never forget it. I think he told me, he was like, well, hell, put him in. And that was kind of how I got in there. And I'll never forget that, it was my first start, but I had 3 touchdowns, 197 yards, and the rest was pretty smooth sailing.
That was against Kentucky, right?
That was against Kentucky.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's pretty smooth sailing is right.
Yeah.
So you go to Chicago, and obviously it's Walter Payton is God there,
Right.
So what was that like for you?
It was a little bittersweet. I mean, again, he was a great player, but he had been there, at that point, had been there a long time, and at that point in his career, at least I thought that I was, faster, stronger, bigger, and so what they did is my first year I played special teams. I led the league in tackles on the kickoff and on the punt. I was like a gunner. So I would go down and had no responsibility, just get the man with the ball. So that was kind of fun for a while. And there were times where, I'd line up and I would just hear the fans, they started chant, Neal, Neal. And so, at least I was on the field. So that was good, for a while. But then the next year I wanted, to get some playing time. So we wouldn't compete. They put me at fullback. And so I started that year as a fullback. But the coaches were smart enough, they gave me some halfback plays to run. And I didn't just block all the time. I think I led the team that year in rushing. And I think that was the first year that Walter had not led the team in rushing since he had been there. So, him being a competitor, it was a little bit tough. There were times where, we had lockers right across from each other, but it wasn't many words said, because, and I understood later, because this guy had, Chicago had been everything to him, the Bears. And even when they weren't doing well as a team and he was doing great, he wasn't trying to maybe go to another team or see how he could get out of there and get to a winner. He stuck with him. So I think Ditka did the right thing. He had earned the right to be able to, play that position while he was doing well and the team was doing well. But the following year, my third year, I thought it was my turn, and then he went ahead and retired. And there's, I think it might be one of Mike Ditka's books, and he talks about how he and the owner, they had some issues about who was going to start. Was Walter going to start? And that was what Ditka wanted. And the owner wanted it to be my turn. It was, time for changing of the guard at that time, he felt. And him being the owner, he won that. So I was the starter, and then Walter retired.
Well, you scored 71 touchdowns in your career. Did you have one that is your favorite?
Not really. I yeah, it would be cool if I did, but I had one game that was, I don't know if it was my favorite, it was one of the most memorable. The proximity between the Bears and the Green Bay Packers, and the hatred that the two teams had for each other. Coaches didn't like each other. Fans didn't like each other. And we were there in Green Bay, and this group of fans behind our bench was just giving me a hard time. They were calling me different kind of names that you can't repeat. And so, you know, I would do something pretty good, and I would go back there and I would stare them down and look at them. And the police officer asked me if I would stop doing that because it was just antagonizing. I said, no, I mean, I can be on the field wherever I want, wherever I can go behind the bench, you know. And so what happened is toward the end of the game, I broke a run that ended the game. I mean, that was for the game wasn't over, but we had won. And I ran over behind the bench and I stared them down. I'm looking at them, I'm waiting on them to throw stuff at me. And all of a sudden, they just slowly started to stand up and clap.
Wow. And
I didn't know if I should cry, what I should do. I didn't know, you know, because I was ready for whatever they had to say and just bring it on, you know, and had the adrenaline flowing, but they appreciated good, hard physical football. So that's one of the most memorable games that I played in.
Wow, that's a great story. You know, you got out after the '93 season. I think you played like 15 games that year. Why did you decide that it was time for you to go?
Well, the first press conference that I ever did after in Chicago, after I was drafted, I went there and I told them during the press conference that I was playing 8 years and I was done. And the reason I said 8 years, at the time, the contracts were pretty standard, 4 years. And so I figured I'd play the first one, and at least in my mind, I thought I would do well, and I hoped that God would bless me to do well. And then I would sign one more, which would be, again, in my mind, a pretty big contract, and then that would do it. And I just fade off into the sunset, and God did bless me, and I was able to stay pretty healthy, and it kind of worked out like I thought, you know. And I signed my second contract. I think at the time I might have been the highest paid Bear player ever at that time, and one of the highest paid running backs of that time. And so when that contract ran out, I kept to my word that I said and called it quits.
And you got out healthy with your limbs intact, and you're still an amazing athlete. And we had a Facebook comment from Gene who said he saw you on the golf course yesterday, and he wanted to know how your game is. I'm like, his tennis or his golf? Because you at one point you were an unbelievable athlete in tennis, and then you went back to golf.
Right. Now I'm playing a lot of golf, and you know, my handicap's around the 2 handicap, wow. So I'm playing well, and just gotta get a little more consistent, and I'll be going out there later this afternoon to tee it up.
Wow, that's great. 2 handicap. I don't think I ever got that low, but yeah, we ought to have you play in our tournament coming up, you know, because do you even play scrambles, or you're kind of like a Spurrier guy? You like to make sure you count only your score.
I like to play my ball, but I'll check with it. Depends on what it is. Most tournaments, a lot of them are on the weekend, and right. Usually with 3 kids playing sports, you know, a son playing soccer and 2 daughters playing volleyball, and even the local one, we had 3 practices a week in Orlando, and that's just for practice. So usually the weekends, somebody has something, and even sometimes it's watching it on one of the ESPN networks. We'll sit and watch somebody's game, because with the COVID, you couldn't watch my son. We couldn't go to Drake and watch him, or we couldn't go watch my daughter at UNC Greensboro, but we can watch them on TV. So they, you know, it's their turn now. So you kind of like my parents did for me. They were very supportive, and now I'm returning the favor.
That's great. Now, like, will you watch the draft? Do you have any interest in this draft coming up?
Actually, probably not. I usually well, I mean, I know there's some players from the University of Florida that are draft hopefuls and first round hopefuls, and I know Kyle Pitts. It'll be interesting to see where he goes and how high he goes. I mean, just phenomenal athlete, and then to see Kyle Trask, Kadarius Toney. So to see where those guys land will be interesting. But I don't know if I'll just watch a whole lot of the draft.
Yeah, it's hard to watch. It's hard to watch at the Oscars Sunday night last night.
Yeah, that's true.
Last question for you. So have you quit playing tennis completely, or are you still playing some?
Well, the tennis ratings that I was playing in with the adult league, I think the highest you could get in the state of Florida, I think, was 5.0 at that time, and that was my goal. And I got to be a 5.0. They moved me up to rating a 5.0, and I think I played one more time, maybe a week later, and I've never touched a racket again because I achieved that goal, and that's what I wanted to do, and I have friends here who, Andy Brandon, a longtime coach for the Florida Gators, the Lady Gators team at that time. He worked with me a little bit, so I had some help and quite a bit of support.
You are a goal-driven dude, man. You
set
up your mind to something and you do it.
I'm fairly competitive, and I like to do well, and I truly think, I mean, God has really blessed me with some athleticism. So, I get a chance, and I get a chance to use it, and that's fun.
Well, and you blessed us by being in this community. We love that. Why did you decide to come back to Gainesville?
Well, I knew some people here. I mean, when they, back in the day, if you remember, when you came in, I don't know what they called it, but they had like a night after some of the practices where you got a chance to go out to dinner with a family from Gainesville. Mm-hmm. And my family was at the time the Rappernakers, Steve and Sue Rappernaker. Yep. And I went to their house and had dinner, and we became friends and hit it off. And they became like second parents to me, and my parents are both dead now, and they have meant so much to me because you meet people, and he did my contract negotiation for him in Chicago, and people thought that was crazy because he had never done it before, but he did a great job, and most contracts are public knowledge, so if you look into it, you can do it. And he gave me a whole lot better deal than I would have gotten anywhere else on the amount I had to pay for it. And then we've had some business partnerships since then that have turned out great. And so knowing him and his wife, and they were here, and that was one reason. And my wife also, she's from Fort Lauderdale, and she and I met here at the University of Florida. So, and when we decided to get married and get ready to have kids, Chicago was so cold, and I love that city, but I grew up with short sleeves and t-shirt on all year round. And I wanted my kids to be able to do the same thing. So when we were looking for places to go, it was kind of in between. We're about 4 or 5 hours from Miami, and from Graceville, we're about 4 hours. So kind of right in between both of our homes, and already knowing people here, it was a great move for us, and we've enjoyed it, and it's been a great place for the kids to grow up. Not big enough city, but not too big where you kind of get lost in too many bad things happening. So we really enjoyed it here.
Well, Neal, I really enjoyed this interview. It's always great talking to you, and thanks so much for joining us here on the podcast.
All right. Thank you for having me.
All right. The great Neal Anderson, who is one of the greatest players, in my opinion, that ever played at Florida. joining us here. We'll take a break in just a minute, and we'll come back with Chip Towers from the AJC.com, who great writer who covers Georgia as we go around the SEC. And again, thanks to Neal. I hope you guys enjoyed that interview. I've interviewed Neal a couple of times, once for one of my books, not that one right that's behind us, but he is just one of the most interesting people. And he just, like, if he decided he wanted to do a podcast, it would probably be the best podcast in the world, because he would just make it the best, because he would be driven to do it. Hopefully he doesn't come and take my job. He probably could if he wanted to. All right, we have a lot of things to cover. We are going to come back with Chip Towers. 3 things presented by Hand Law. We got to get to the Leonardos at Millhopper. I have made this so simple for you this week. We got to get to the Adams Ribco Gator of the weekend. All that and more coming up, but we'll be joined by Chip Towers when we return from this commercial break here on another Dooley Noted podcast. This is Pat Dooley, and I want to tell you about my friends at the Gainesville Quarterback Club. I'm a member, and you should be too. It's the oldest Gator booster club in the world and a great place to meet new friends, network with prominent business people, and hear a great collection of speakers, including Dan Mullen, throughout the football season. Go ahead and give John Stevens a call at 352-222-8516 or sign up on the website, quarterbackclub.org.
Titan MRI, North Central Florida's premier independent diagnostic testing MRI facility. At Titan MRI, we're focused on you, the patient, having a great customer experience. Our MRI equipment is modern and 75% quieter than any unit in its class. And our MRI unit has one of the largest openings of any of the newer high-strength MRI units, which allows comfortable scanning for potential claustrophobic and larger patients. At Titan MRI, we look forward to serving you.
You can get your favorite alcoholic brands from ABC Fine Wine and Spirits delivered right to your door. ABC Delivers is available in Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville, and all of the Southeast Florida. Earn ABC points for coupons and free bottles through abcdelivers.com. It's powered by FedEx Same Day City, and you're going to love the price. Free with a $50 purchase for the first 7 miles. So wine, spirits, beer, and everything you need to celebrate. Get it delivered. Shop abcdelivers.com. Thanks so much to our title sponsors, ABC Fine Wine and Spirits and Titan MRI, and to our pick sponsor, Leonardo's of Millhopper. You can find us live on Facebook and YouTube, or listen at your leisure on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or wherever you find all your favorite podcasts. I'm excited to continue this podcast and to have your company on board as a sponsor. If you're interested in being part of the show, email me at patrickdooley54@gmail.com or give me a call, 352-317-3444. All right, and welcome back to another Dooley Noted podcast. We appreciate all of you for watching us, whether it's on Facebook or YouTube, or if you're listening to us on all the platforms that we have, including Spotify and Google Podcasts. There's so many of them. I can't name them all. We'll get to 3 things a little bit later in the show. But right now we're going to talk to one of my good friends, Chip Towers from AJC.com, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. He's been covering Georgia for, I think, a couple of years, almost as long as I covered Florida. How are you, Chip?
Yeah, I'm great. Good to see you. Good to actually see you during an interview. I've long heard your voice on the other end, but it's great to be able to see you live and in person.
Yeah, we never see anybody anymore. I mean, it's, how many games did you see of Georgia's this year?
Well, actually, I only went to one. I went to the Tennessee game early in the season, and then I was edified about COVID a little bit more. And in my particular situation, it was told, probably shouldn't go to those events if you can avoid it. And, as you know, Georgia, Florida, everybody in the SEC really made it. I think they did a good job of making it serviceable from a journalistic standpoint to be able to cover things, So that was the last event I covered live until the G-Day game. Just last week, I went to Georgia's G-Day game for two reasons. One, because it was the iffy kind of telecast. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to see everything I needed to see because of the SEC Network Plus and all that. And secondly, I'm vaxxed now, and feeling better about things, and I think that's reason for optimism for the 2021 football season. It sounds like things are slowly opening back up, and right now, if I was laying money on it, I'd say we would be looking at a fully attended football season this coming fall, but probably with cautions and different kind of restrictions. But it seems to be trending that way to me. But anyway, so yeah, I've been to two live events, and I guess I'm out now. So I'm covering a baseball game Tuesday night, and we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, we saw 3 games live. Went to the early, but I mean, it was so weird not being at Florida, Georgia this year.
Yeah.
Watching that on TV and then getting on a Zoom call, and you hope they bring the right guys, guys that you want to talk to. But it was strange. I wish I had bought Zoom stock about a year and a half ago.
Wow. Yeah. I was the same thing years ago. I remember when iPhones were coming in and they were talking about those other things, and I'm like, golly, we've seen so many great opportunities pass ourselves by. But yeah, Zoom is a fantastic technology, and yeah, look, we're never going to go back all the way. I mean, I think you can tell that. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with the SEC spring meetings in Destin. I guess there hasn't been a mandate yet on SEC Media Days in Atlanta, but I know Georgia's board meetings. I got a questionnaire the other day. Would you attend in person if you were able to the board meeting, right? And I was like, well, yeah, sure, but I anticipate a lot more of those things continuing to be on some kind of digital video platform going forward, and I think midweek interviews and those kind of things during football season. I think Kirby Smart and Nick Saban and Dan Mullen and those guys probably like the control they have with that. Hey, we're just going to send up two players of our selection at the end of each practice or ahead of each game and be done with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk a little Georgia Bulldogs. We're making our way around the SEC, and it's kind of it's interesting to me how everybody just turned on the Gators. Nobody likes Florida this year. Everybody loves Georgia, and a lot of it has to do with who they have coming back. And I'm kind of curious to see the quarterback play against really good teams. I didn't feel like he really had to beat a good team last year. Am I off base there?
No, I think you're right. The best competition he faced based on rankings was Cincinnati, in the Peach Bowl. And I definitely don't want to down, having seen them play in that bowl game in particular, up close and personal, I was pretty impressed with Cincinnati overall. I mean, that's a pretty salty team. And of course, it was one of those scenarios, Auburn can certainly identify with. Florida, you can name a bowl game in the past. I mean, they were undefeated and absolutely playing for everything. And while Georgia's got, a half a dozen players opting out of the bowl and, not real excited about playing in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. But that said, that was probably the best competition that JT Daniels faced outside of the first game, which, this really isn't synonymous with Mississippi State football under Mike Leach, but the defensive effort they put on Georgia in the first game that he started was really impressive. I mean, they absolutely stoned Georgia's running game like nobody had ever seen, and they forced JT Daniels to pass, which was their strategy, and he threw for 401 yards and 4 touchdowns. So, therein somewhere lies the truth. I don't think we've seen – now, I'll tell you this. he did go against Georgia's defense this entire spring, and Georgia's bringing some D this year. No question about that. Now they're questionable in the back end. There's no doubt about that. But their front seven is really, really good. It's going to be one of the best in football this year, both in quality and in depth. So that's my point on that, is that's helping JT Daniels have to go against those guys every day in practice and in the G-Day game.
Yeah, when you think back to last year and Kirby's quarterback shuffles where he finally got to where he wanted to be, I mean, what do you think played into that more than anything?
Well, that'll always be a great mystery, because you never know if you're getting rhetoric or the truth, and so, the narrative is that he wasn't cleared. He wasn't ready to play. And whether that was a JT Daniels call or a Kirby Smart slash Todd Monken call, I don't know. But, we saw Georgia up until then, and by the time they broke him out, Georgia had already lost to Florida and Alabama. Now, would he have made a difference if he'd been in those games? We'll never know. And I think Stetson Bennett kind of gets a bad rap. I mean, you'll recall in the Florida game, listen, he's not a great NFL prospect or anything like that, but, he's a cerebral guy that tends to get him in the right play and can make some plays with his feet and throw the ball. And he had done a pretty good job against Florida in the first half until he got smashed, on an actual touchdown pass in the shoulder. He wasn't the same for weeks after that. It subluxed the shoulder, and that sort of Kirby had maybe an inordinate belief in Stetson Bennett, and that ultimately gave in to JT Daniels being cleared to play in the next game. He was technically cleared to play before that, but he didn't play, and he was running scout team in practice. We know that. It wasn't until after the Florida game that he moved into the number one offense and started taking reps with them, and then he started in the next game against Mississippi State.
Yeah, you talked about that front seven defensively, and that's what we hear from up there. It's going to be unbelievable. But, that back four, you're right. When you're replacing guys, and we saw it against Florida, without LeCount, that defense wasn't very good because they couldn't cover anybody. And now, obviously, he's not going to be there this year. But they've recruited so well, you think it'll work out for them?
Well, yeah. So a few different things, on that front. And look, I don't know. I mean, I'm probably less optimistic on Georgia than a lot of the people who cover the beat. And you know this about me, and I think you share the same sentiments. When you cover a team and you cover it a long time like I have, and you tend to look at the flaws and focus on those. And so when I see them getting a lot of grandiose expectations, I'm like, I don't know. There's a lot of remake on the O-line, and I don't know. Florida's had enough great defensive backs that this is possible, but I don't know I've ever seen a program lose 5 cornerbacks out of a rotation. Like, all 5 of those guys started. 2 of them, every day, but the other 2, DJ Daniel and Tyreek Stevenson, that joined the transfer portal thing and went home to Miami inexplicably in this year when he would have been a starting cornerback. I've never seen a team have to really recover that much. So they are. It's empty at the corner. They're new guys. One of them's a 5th-year senior named Amir Speed, who was a huge recruit, and he's a huge guy. He's 6'3", playing cornerback, and he stayed at corner. But he's made it to his redshirt senior year without ever starting. So he's right now starting at one corner. Georgia has recruited 5-star after 5-star after 5-star. We all know their recruiting rankings, and make of it what you will, especially Florida fans. I mean, I get it. Keely Ringo and Jalen Kimber and all these big, huge recruits coming out of high school, they're waiting and coming in. And then there's the transfer portal, right? They already got one guy coming in from West Virginia who was a third-team All-American. He wasn't here for spring, but he's going to be here in June when he can enroll and word is, I is on the waiver wire. It's the way I look at it, so I don't know if they'll pluck a couple of starters from somewhere else, over the summer. But they are looking, I can promise you that, because they have zero experience at the corner position. And, that's a big deal. That was a big deal in 1985, but it's a bigger deal in 2021 because, the way people throw the balls around and exploit the edges, you got to have really strong outside coverage. And I'm not sure if that's ever going to be the case this year. It may be, but, we'll have to wait and see.
Before I let you go, Chip, and we appreciate your time, I want to ask you about Georgia fans and Justin Fields. And with the draft coming up, obviously Thursday, I wonder if they're rooting for him or does it make him mad that he wasn't the starter? And it's kind of weird how Jake Fromm beat him out and then Fromm struggled his senior year, or his junior year. But how did Georgia fans feel about Justin?
Well, a pretty good split on it, because it's like any, certainly the old guard and all that kind of stuff was like, don't let the door hit you on the way out, and there's other people that know, hey, you just let the number one. Well, let me back up because I think the narrative on this is basically Georgia did not want Justin Fields to leave. In fact, Kirby Smart behind the scenes was doing, handstands and flips and everything else trying to get him to stay. They didn't want him to leave, but he did. So, and history is what it is. He did what he did at Ohio State, and but there's no question. I think if he'd have hung around, he probably would have beat out Jake Fromm that next year. But he didn't hang around to do it. So we'll never know that. I thought initially when you were asking about Fields, you were going to ask me about Jaden Fields, his sister, who had the game-winning hit for the Georgia softball team against number one and previously undefeated Oklahoma. That's obviously I'm joking about that, but I say that.
I saw that,
yeah. But I say that because the rumor of this acrimony between Georgia and Justin Fields and all that, it's not there. His sister stayed here. She's played. They love Georgia. Justin Fields makes these mysterious appearances every once in a while in Athens. He'll be at a softball game or he'll be downtown, getting something to eat or whatever. It is what it is now. And now that we see the transfer portal in its full capacity, I guess it's really not that big of a deal anymore. If you don't start in 1 year, you're probably going to leave. And Georgia's got a few quarterbacks this year behind JT Daniels that may be eyeing that thing too. They got some pretty good talent lined up behind JT Daniels, and we'll see how patient those guys are.
Chip, it's always a pleasure, man. Thanks for joining us, and hopefully I'll see you soon.
I'm just glad to be part of another duly noted podcast. I love to see that you're doing it, and it's awesome. I've watched a bunch of your episodes. You do a great job. Thanks.
I appreciate it, Chip. Thanks a lot. And we appreciate Chip Towers very much for joining us here on the show. I think we'll go ahead and take our other break, and then we'll get all this three things presented by Hand Law, Leonardo's at Millhopper Quick Picks, and the Adams Ribco Gator of the weekend. So all that's coming up after we take this break here on another Duly Noted podcast. You can get your favorite alcoholic brands from ABC Fine Wine and Spirits delivered right to your door. ABC Delivers is available in Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville, and all of the Southeast Florida. Earn ABC points for coupons and free bottles through abcdelivers.com. It's powered by FedEx Same Day City, and you're going to love the price. Free with a $50 purchase for the first 7 miles. So wine, spirits, beer, and everything you need to celebrate. Get it delivered. Shop abcdelivers.com. Thanks so much to our title sponsors, ABC Fine Wine and Spirits and Titan MRI, and to our pick sponsor, Leonardo's of Millhopper. You can find us live on Facebook and YouTube or listen at your leisure on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or wherever you find all your favorite podcasts. I'm excited to continue this podcast and to have your company on board as a sponsor. If you're interested in being part of the show, email me at patrickdooley54 gmail.com or give me a call, 352-317-3444.
Titan MRI, North Central Florida's premier independent diagnostic testing MRI facility. At Titan MRI, we're focused on you, the patient, having a great customer experience. Our MRI equipment is modern and 75% quieter than any unit in its class. And our MRI unit has one of the largest openings of any of the newer high-strength MRI units, which allows comfortable scanning for potential claustrophobic and larger patients. At Titan MRI, we look forward to serving you.
Okay, welcome back to another Dooley Noted podcast. We got to get to our favorite things. We always love doing that, but really enjoyed those interviews with Neal Anderson. If you missed it, if you're just tuning in, you could go listen to it on any of the 39 platforms we have it on, Spotify and Google Podcasts, and you know what they are. WRUF.com, all those places. In fact, the Back Nine is up there too. I think you guys are going to find it interesting, especially when I rank something in there. So you can give that a look. All right. It is time for Three Things presented by Hand Law, a Florida law firm which helps clients with government. You can learn more about Hand Law by visiting its website at www.hand.law. The firm is available for consultation in Jacksonville. We appreciate them being on board. All right, let's start off with number one. Now, we were thinking about doing LSU today, and so I called my buddy Scott Rabelais last week to get him on, and he goes, I think there's going to be a press conference Monday. And I'm like, for what? He goes, Kim Mulkey, I think, is going to come to LSU. And I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? Well, I didn't really, I knew her son played there, one of my least favorite players of all time. But I didn't realize what a history she has with that city in Baton Rouge. Also, apparently there were some things going on at Baylor she didn't like, and she's very outspoken. She wanted a new facility. She wanted, she was get $2.5 million. Anyway, long story short, which is not what I'm doing, Kim Mulkey at LSU, the SEC just keeps getting harder and harder, especially if you're Cam Newbauer. You've already got South Carolina you got to deal with. A&M's been great. It is really an unbelievable conference. So it certainly gets harder to recruit against somebody within the SEC who has won 3 national championships. I think it's a fascinating story, though, that she went there. Number 2, I saw this story today, and I really want to read more about it because I've never seen anything like this in my lifetime. There was this sprinter, and his name is Blake Leeper. I may be mispronouncing the last name. I just read the story in the Washington Post. He was appealing a ruling that he could not run with his prosthetic legs. He was born without legs, okay? He wants to compete in the Olympics, and they upheld the appeal, or they upheld that he could not do it. He can't run in the Olympics because they said his prosthetic legs make him too tall, and it gives him an unfair advantage. Now, they put together this committee to look at things like this. I don't know how to feel about this. Like, part of me is like saying, why would you not keep anybody from doing it without legs? Anybody who doesn't have legs should be able to compete in whatever they want to, okay? It should be a rule. It should be common sense. Anyway, and number 3 here on 3 Things presented by Hand Law, I want to give a plug to my buddies at the Tailgate Guys who are, they're actually, I didn't realize this, they said they're taking reservations if you want to go to the game if you're going to the game at USF in Tampa, second game of the season, for Tailgate Guys tents, and you guys have seen them all around. They do a great job. They're a great sponsor of our golf tournament, the Bob Dooley Invitational, and they're taking orders. You can reach them at tailgateguys.com. That is a free plug, okay? These guys have been so great to us, and I think they do a great job. And so that is 3 things. Okay, appreciate Hand Law. Let's go to the Leonardo's and Millhopper quick picks. And we didn't get a lot of response from the thing, and maybe I put it up at a bad time, and so a lot of people didn't see it on Facebook or Twitter. But we didn't get a lot of response. We didn't have a winner. Didn't have anybody qualify. So I'm making this unbelievably easy for you. You know, it's as easy as going into Leonardo's at Millhopper and ordering a Parmesan sub, which I love. Man, it is. That is all I get. Not even. It's just a Parmesan sandwich, chicken Parmesan. Oh, man, it's so good. All right, this is so easy. You've got to guess it right. What round will Kyle Trask get drafted in? That's it. You just go 2, 3, 4, whatever, 1. Who knows? Who knows with what's going on with the Patriots? I mean, there's a lot of talk. They're going to trade up. This is what cracks me up about draft chatter, which is what I call it, is guys, they'll have 4 guys on from ESPN, and all 4 of them have a totally different opinion about what the teams are going to do. So somebody's got to be right, but everybody isn't going to be right, but you have to have a different opinion. And that's the thing, it sells. It's no good if Mel Kiper and Todd McShay go down there and go, I don't think the Patriots are going to trade up and find a quarterback. There's a lot of talk they may take Justin Fields. No, I don't think they're going to trade up. I think they're going to trade back. You think Bill Belichick is giving away secrets up there? I don't think that's happening. All right, so we appreciate Leonardo's at Millhopper Quick Picks. It is very simple. Round for Kyle Trask. What round does he get drafted in? I'll post that on Twitter and also on Facebook and try to get some more people qualified. We love getting people qualified for the Leonardo's at Millhopper Quick Picks. Okay, finally we go, and I don't mean to do it last. It's batting cleanup, I guess. The Adams Ribco to go Gator of the weekend, and the sign's up over there at the new Adams Ribco to go. I'm fired up about just being able to go. I'll get dinner tonight, honey. You don't worry about it. Just pull in there. Maybe get some ribs or some. God, I like the turkey. I like everything there. Anyway, the Adams Ribco to go Gator of the weekend is Natalie Lugo, who really kind of pulled Florida out of the fire after they lost that first game to South Carolina. And she wins 2 in a row. So she pitched 12 2/3 innings. Really good story on her by Chris Harry on FloridaGators.com. 12 2/3 innings, 1 run, 2 wins. She's now 13-1. And I didn't even realize this. She is kind of overlooked, I think, as being a really good pitcher because of obviously it was Kelly Barnhill and now it's Hightower. So. But her ERA is the best ERA in conference play in the SEC, which is the best softball conference. Okay, 1.02. I did not realize she was that good, and she was leading the league. But she kind of caught my attention this weekend. So she is the Adams Ribco to go. I threw that in there. It's called Adams Ribco to go, the new place. So we'll check with Adam, make sure he wants to do that. He wants to promote everything. Adams Ribco to go. We like everybody. All right. That should do it, right? We're done for the day, and I appreciate everybody, especially our great guests. They were just terrific. Chip Towers of the AJC.com and Neal Anderson, the great running back, not only for the Gators, but also the Chicago Bears. I had not heard that story about him saying that at his first press conference, he said, I'm going to play 8 years, and that's it, and just walked away from the game. But the story that I forgot to ask him, that I remember him telling me a long time ago, I think it was him. I know it was him, but I'm just saying, I think he's the one who told me, is that he had the same car all the way through those 8 years. It was like a red Datsun or something. He was saving his money, and so now he can play golf, take care of, do a great job of those kids of his. Great guy. I love Neal Anderson to death. And love Chip Towers too. Right now, I love Evan for getting us through another hour of another Dooley Noted podcast. Appreciate you guys so much, and we'll be back Friday. Today's Monday, right? Friday with another edition, and we'll have a couple of guests for you as well. Dallas Baker is going to be on the show, I think, next Monday. We're lining up some other guests as well. So we'll get out of here. And that'll do it for another Dooley Noted podcast. I'm Pat Dooley. So long from the Sunshine State.